It was the kind of email you don't expect to find in your inbox. Short, vague, and unsettling. Congratulations, you've been selected for an exclusive experience at the Ashwood Grand Hotel. One night, all expenses paid. A night you will never forget. No company logo, no sender name, no reason why I, out of millions, was invited. I should have deleted it, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. The Ashwood Grand stood deep in the forests of Vermont, far from any town, reachable only by a cracked two-lane road that cut through miles of trees. The hotel looked like something ripped out of a Victorian nightmare. Towering gables peeling paint, a single dim light glowing in the lobby window like a watchful eye. The wind here didn't just blow, it whispered. When I stepped out of my car, the smell hit me first. Damp wood, rust, and something faintly sweet like rotting flowers. Inside, the lobby was lit by an old chandelier that swayed slightly even though the air was still. Behind the counter stood a woman in a faded red dress. Her smile was polite, but her eyes never quite blinked. "Welcome to Ashwood Grand," she said softly. "We've been expecting you." Her voice had that strange quality where you can't tell if it's warm or cold. She slid a tarnished brass key across the counter. The number stamped on it was 3. My room was at the very end of a long carpeted hallway. The lights flickered as I walked, but only when I moved. When I stopped, they held steady. Inside, the room looked ordinary enough. A bed, a small desk, a wardrobe, but the mirror above the dresser wasn't quite right. My reflection lagged, just for half a second, but long enough to feel wrong. I laughed it off. The mind plays tricks in places like this, until I noticed something. The reflection in the mirror was still smiling. By midnight I had given up on sleep. The wind outside had grown louder, almost like voices carrying through the trees. At one point I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate. Pausing outside my door, I called out, "Nothing," but the air smelled faintly of wet earth, like someone had just come in from the rain. When I looked at the mirror again, there was no me at all, just the room, and behind the dresser, the shadow of someone standing perfectly still. The shadow didn't move, it just stood there, behind the dresser, faint and shapeless, but wrong in a way I can't explain. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, it was gone. The room felt colder now, and the smell of wet earth was stronger. I told myself it had to be my imagination, but my heart wouldn't slow down. I turned away from the mirror, deciding not to look at it again. But then, the wardrobe door creaked open by itself. It was slow, like someone was pushing it from the inside, just enough for darkness to spill out. I grabbed the bedside lamp and stepped closer. The inside of the wardrobe was empty, but the back panel had something scratched into it. 5 deep marks, like fingernail grooves, dragging downward. The wood was splintered around them, and when I touched it, it felt damp, as if whatever had clawed it was still wet. A noise came from the hallway, 3 knocks, spaced out, deliberate. I opened the door, but the hallway was empty. The lights above me flickered again, but this time they didn't stop. Flicker, 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 like a bad signal, and for a split second I thought I saw someone at the far end, leaning out from behind the wall just enough to watch me. I stepped back into the room, slammed the door, and locked it. The knocking returned almost instantly, but not from the hallway this time. It came from inside the room, from behind the mirror. I froze, staring at my own reflection. It stared back, except the reflection's eyes were too wide. Its grin stretched too far. Then, without me moving an inch, the reflection tilted its head, slowly, like it was studying me. The knocks became pounding. The mirror began to rattle against the wall. I reached for my phone, but the screen was black, dead. In the silence between the pounding, I heard it, a whisper, muffled, like someone speaking through glass. I pressed my ear closer to the mirror. It said my name. Before I could move, the mirror cracked right down the center, a jagged black line splitting my reflection in half, and through that crack, I swear I saw fingers pushing through. The fingers pushed farther through the crack, pale and thin, the nails long and yellow. They scraped along the glass with a sound like metal on bone. I stumbled back, but the fingers kept curling, feeling the air, as if searching for something me. The glass bulged outward like it was stretching, warping, and then a whole hand forced its way through. It was ice cold just looking at it, skin so pale it almost seemed translucent. Veins were dark and swollen beneath the surface, pulsing slowly. I grabbed the chair from the desk and swung it at the mirror. The glass shattered, raining sharp pieces across the floor. For a moment, the hand was gone, but so was my reflection. Now the hole in the wall where the mirror had been showed something that couldn't exist. It wasn't wood or insulation back there, just darkness, deep and endless, like staring into a night sky without stars. And from that darkness a face began to emerge. It wasn't human. The skin was stretched too tight, the mouth too wide, the eyes black pits that seemed to pull the light out of the room. It opened its mouth, and the sound that came out was not a scream, not a word, but something in between, low, rumbling, like the earth itself groaning. I backed toward the door, fumbling with the lock, but when I yanked it open, the hallway was gone. Instead, there was the same room, identical in every detail, except everything was rotting. The carpet was black with mold, the wallpaper peeling in strips, and the chandelier was nothing but a tangle of rusted chains. Even the air felt heavier, thick, like breathing in dust. Somewhere in that decayed version of my room, I heard slow, dragging footsteps. I turned toward the sound, but the moment I did, the door slammed shut behind me. The footsteps stopped. Silence. And then, in the corner something moved. It unfolded from the shadows, tall and impossibly thin, its head brushing the ceiling, its limbs bending in ways they shouldn't. It began to crawl toward me, joints cracking with each movement, and I realized it wasn't walking, it was climbing, like a spider. Its face always turned toward me. I tried to scream but no sound came out. It was almost on top of me when the floor beneath my feet gave way, and I fell straight into darkness. I was falling for what felt like minutes, weightless in a black void that had no body. There was no wind, no rush of air, just silence, and a strange sensation that something was falling alongside me, unseen but close enough to feel. Then without warning, I landed, not on the hard floor I was expecting, but on something soft, something that shifted beneath me. When my hands touched it, I realized it wasn't fabric or it was hair.
Yeah.
Long, thick strands of human hair. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding, and that's when I noticed I wasn't in the hotel anymore. I stood in a narrow corridor with walls made of old splintered wood. It was lit by a single flickering bulb overhead, its wire disappearing into darkness. The air was humid and smelled of mildew and something else, copper. I took a step forward and felt the wood beneath me creak. Somewhere in the distance, a slow, rhythmic dripping echoed. The corridor was too quiet otherwise, as if the place itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it behind me, bare feet slapping against the floor, coming closer. I spun around, but the corridor stretched endlessly in both directions now. No door, no exit. The footsteps stopped. A woman's voice whispered right next to my ear. "You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here." I jerked away, but no one was there. Still, the smell of damp hair and cold breath lingered. As I walked forward, the dripping sound grew louder, until I reached its source. A door. Its paint was blistered and peeling, and from the gap beneath it, a dark liquid oozed out onto the floor. When I touched the handle, it was wet. I opened it slowly. The room beyond was small, its walls lined with mirrors, but in each reflection, I wasn't alone. In every mirror something stood right behind me, close enough that I could feel the weight of its stare. I turned quickly. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure was closer, and in one of them its hand was reaching toward my shoulder. Before I could react, every mirror in the room shattered at once, the glass exploding outward like a scream, frozen in time. The shards didn't fall. They hung in the air, suspended, each one showing a different part of the hotel, the lobby, the hallway, and in all of them, I was there, staring back at myself. Then one by one, the shards began to turn toward me. The shards began to spin slowly, like they were caught in an invisible current. Each one reflected me differently, older in one, younger in another, dead in a third. I stepped back, but they followed, drifting closer, until I could feel their cold edges brushing my skin. Then the largest shard tilted forward, and instead of reflecting the room, it showed a hallway I didn't recognize. The carpet was soaked with something dark, the walls warped with water damage, and at the far end, a figure stood with its back to me. It wasn't moving. The shard pulsed just once like a heartbeat, and before I could react, it yanked me forward. I didn't fall this time. I was pulled straight through the glass, the air rushing past me like I'd stepped into a storm. When I landed, I was in that hallway. The figure at the end was still there, unmoving. I called out, my voice echoing unnaturally, as if the walls were stretching the sound. Slowly, the figure turned its head, but only its head, spinning far too far, until it faced me without moving its body. The face was wrong, skin pale and tight, mouth curled into a smile that didn't reach the eyes that were entirely black. It started walking toward me, slow but deliberate. Every step made the floor groan, and with each one the lights above us flickered and died, one by one, until only the bulb above my head was left. When that last light went out, I felt it standing right in front of me. The darkness was thick, almost physical, pressing against my skin. I could hear it breathing, slow and shallow, right at my ear. Then something cold and wet touched my hand. It was holding something. I didn't want to take it, but my fingers closed around it anyway. It was a key, heavy, old, the number scratched into it, barely readable. Before I could move, the darkness behind me split open like a tear in the world itself, and I was shoved. I hit the floor hard, gasping, and when I looked up, I was back in the hallway outside my room in the Ashwood Grand. Everything was silent, the lights steady, the carpet clean, as if nothing had happened, but the key in my hand was still wet. I stared at the key, my breath fogging in the suddenly cold air. The brass was tarnished, the edges jagged like it had been pried from something, and the number 13 looked more carved than stamped, as if someone had scratched it in desperation. My hand ached from holding it, but I couldn't let it go. The hallway felt different now, too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you start hearing things that aren't there. Somewhere, far down the corridor, a single door creaked open, not all the way, just enough for a sliver of darkness to leak out. My feet moved on their own, each step heavier than the last. As I passed the other rooms, I noticed the numbers were wrong. They didn't go in order anymore. 13, 412, 102. And then finally, the door was old. The wood splintered around the lock. The brass plate was bent as though someone had tried to rip it off. I slid the key into the lock. It turned with a sound that made my teeth ache. The door swung open slowly, and cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of damp stone, and something faintly metallic. Blood, maybe. The room inside was not like the others. The walls were bare concrete, wet and dripping, and the floor was nothing but dirt. In the center was a chair, and in the chair, a figure sat, motionless, head bowed. I stepped inside, my shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth. The figure's breathing was ragged, uneven. I took another step closer. It raised its head. The face was mine, but not exact. The skin was pale, the eyes sunken and ringed with shadow. The mouth stretched into a thin, unnatural smile. It didn't blink. Then it spoke in my voice. You shouldn't have opened the door. Before I could move, the door behind me slammed shut, and the sound of the lock turning echoed through the concrete room. The other me stood up, the smile never fading, and started walking toward me slowly.
deliberate. Every step it took made the dirt floor ripple beneath my feet, as if the ground itself was alive. The walls began to close in, the dripping water now a steady downpour, and somewhere in the darkness above, something whispered my name. The other me kept walking, each step unnerving in its precision, heel, toe, like it had been practicing for years just to mimic me. The smile never moved, and the eyes, those black empty eyes, didn't just look at me, they looked through me. I backed away until my shoulders hit the damp wall. The concrete felt soft, like flesh. When I glanced over my shoulder, I saw the wall slowly rising and falling. Breathing, the other me tilted its head, studying me like I was some strange animal. Then it spoke again, still in my voice but deeper, slower, stretched thin like something was pulling it apart. You left me here. My mouth went dry. I've never been here before, I said, though my voice didn't sound convincing, even to me. It stepped closer, and as it did, its skin began to ripple. The pale flesh shifted like water, revealing flashes of something underneath, dark, wet, and moving. Suddenly, it lunged. Its hands gripped my face, ice-cold fingers digging into my skin. The moment it touched me, my vision split. I was seeing through my own eyes and its eyes at the same time. Through its vision, the room wasn't concrete. It was the hotel lobby. Bright, warm, empty. Through my vision, it was still the wet, claustrophobic cell. Two realities at once, overlapping, fighting for dominance. Give me your place, it whispered, the words rattling inside my skull. I'll take the light, you keep the dark. The floor beneath us gave way again, but this time I didn't fall. I sank, slowly, as if the dirt was swallowing me whole. The other me stayed perfectly still, watching, its smile growing wider as I disappeared into the earth. The last thing I saw before the dirt closed over my head was its face leaning down, whispering, "Now, they'll never know the difference." Darkness pressed in from all sides, heavy and suffocating. I tried to claw upward, but the soil around me was packed tight, cold and wet. Every breath filled my mouth with the taste of earth. Somewhere above, faint and muffled, I heard footsteps walking away. I stopped struggling, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't. The weight of the ground felt stronger than my muscles, stronger than my will. And then I realized, the soil was moving. It shifted against my skin, almost like hands pulling me deeper, guiding me somewhere. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing, not in the dirt, not in the hotel, but in a long, endless hallway made entirely of doors, hundreds of them stretching into darkness, each one with a number. The first door beside me said th, the next said th. The numbers kept going, higher and higher, far past what should exist in a building. I turned back and froze. The door behind me had no number. It had my name carved into the wood, deep enough that the grooves bled. A voice came from somewhere behind the door. My voice, "Don't open it." But the hallway lights began to flicker, and all the doors started to creak open at once. From each one, shadows spilled out, crawling across the floor, stretching toward me. Every shadow had eyes, and every pair of eyes was mine. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran. But no matter how far I went, the hallway never ended. The doors never stopped. And then I heard it, from far ahead. Laughter. My laughter. It was coming closer. I tripped and hit the ground. And when I looked up, someone was standing over me. It was me. Clean clothes, bright eyes, warm smile. Exactly the version the world would trust. It crouched down, placed a cold hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "They'll never miss you." Before I could scream, it turned and walked away, straight through a door marked exit. The moment the door shut, the shadows rushed over me, and the hallway went black. The last thing I heard was the hotel receptionist's voice, clear and calm. Welcome to the Ashwood Grand. We've been expecting you.